Hi, everyone, and welcome to Conversations on Sex, Addiction, and Relationships. I am Dan Drake, and I'm joined with Wendy Conquest and Jeanne Vattuone. And we don't have our colleague Tim Stein with us today, but we are super looking forward to this conversation today. We'll be talking about a new book that Tammy Gustafson has on betrayal. So I'm really excited to have her in here. And I'm just curious for you guys, as we're talking about betrayal and the impact for betrayed partners, curious for you guys how anything you're looking forward to in this conversation specifically?
Well, her having written a book is such a labor of love. And so hearing her process of how she decided to do that. But Tammy has been such an advocate in the partner betrayed partner world, especially with her healing conference. So I'm really excited to talk to her and just get to know her better too.
Right. And for me, any resource that is helping partners to understand this dynamic, to work with that severely dysregulated nervous system, to help them navigate this very challenging, difficult, confusing experience, I'm really excited to learn more about. So happy to have her on.
Yeah, and I'm excited. I think it's a tough line to go. How do we draw the line between something that's really helpful professionally, but also that's really down to earth and applied that we can actually understand in a clear way? So I think she chose that line really well. So I'm excited to have her on. And Tammy, we'd love to have you join us.
Ta-da!
Hi,
Welcome,
Yay.
Tammy.
Hey
Tammy.
guys. Hi there.
Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we talked a little before we got started, and would you just first of all, let's get to the title of your book because we're excited that this is now out in the world. Would you mind sharing it with us? And I'd love to know just after that, like what the process was like for you actually getting to have a book out there.
Absolutely. Well, the title is Broken to Brave, Your Courageous Act of Healing After Intimate Betrayal. And I have the cover
Yay!
so everyone
Yay.
can see it. So, this whole writing a book thing, whoo-wee, it is a whole different ballgame. This book has been on my heart and in me for a long time. A long time. It's been a fascinating process to go through the whole from the idea of it to actually getting myself to a place where I was ready to do it, to pitching it to publishers and having a book contract through the process of writing it. All in all, this has probably been a 6 year process. Just writing it alone and getting out into the world, it's been about a 2.5 year process. So it has come from my heart for a long time.
I was thinking as you're saying that, Wendy and I, we know how that is. How long, I don't know how long it took us to write, but 6 years, that sounds about right. It takes a long time to get these things. So
Yeah.
that's amazing you did it and had the perseverance to get it launched.
Mhm.
It's fascinating because as many know, this is part of my story as well. And so I was honestly never one of those people who wanted to use my story for good. It took me a long time, probably those 6 years and more, to get to a place where I was ready to actually write it. This is not about my story. My story is in there, but it's not about my story, right? But it is a whole process, and it really parallels what a lot of betrayed partners go through of, I don't want anyone to know, I'm never going to, I just want to stay isolated, and then getting more comfortable and dealing with the shame that can come with it. And not that every betrayed partner needs to speak about it or become a coach or write about it, not at all, not in the least. But man, it is an internal and an external process for sure.
So will you tell us about the book and I guess I'm wondering how it differs from other books out there on betrayal trauma?
Yeah, absolutely. So the book is designed around my 4 phases of healing after betrayal. And these are ones that I noticed professionally and clinically, having walked my clients through this, and of course, personally, having gone through this before. Something that I think is so fascinating about this whole thing is that we know as counselors and as coaches that there are patterns to healing, and there's patterns to behavior. And that is something that we have the luxury of seeing since we do this in and day out. But when you're in the trenches, when I was a betrayed partner, I did not know any of this existed. So suddenly you find yourself in this place of, I don't know if I'm moving forward or backwards. I don't know if what I'm doing is helping or hurting. I don't know if it's even possible to heal or if anybody else has made it to the other side, right? And so part of this book is pulling back the curtain on the path of healing of those patterns that we see and helping betrayed partners see no, first of all, there absolutely is a path. It's not one tiny razor thin line. There's no one right way to heal, but we definitely have this is the general direction. And these are some guideposts along the way that will help you get grounded to know where you're at, to know where things that will help and to focus on in these particular phases, things that will actually get you stuck. And so it was really to demystify the process and to help betrayed partners get their footing.
So you talk about the 4 phases that you have. You mind sharing them? I know that's kind of how your book is centered, like sharing with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give a real high view. So the 4 phases really, they follow not her, not simply her healing path, but it follows the relationship dynamic. Because I know when life blows up, you can't pull yourself out of the relationship that you are struggling with in that moment. So it starts with phase one is reveal. And that's when the truth about what he has done has come to light. And I say he because my audience is mainly women who are betrayed. Of course, we know men are as well. But that first phase is when life shatters, when the shock is when you're trying to get the truth about what has actually happened, what is actually your reality, and the truth about what he has done. And then once you get to the point where you either have the truth or you know that you will never get the truth, then that kind of transitions into phase two, which is rumble. And that is the long, painful, messy middle. It's all painful, but that's a long, messy middle where you're not sure if you're going to stay or go. You're not sure if he's going to do the work to heal. You're trying to step into your strength and set boundaries. You are grieving and dealing with all these emotions. It's where a lot of that work happens. And then phase three, which is realign, really it it's when you start to know, okay, this is the direction my relationship is headed. And I really identify 3 paths. One is redemption, where the relationship is healing and you want to stay. Another one is divorce. And then there's a middle one that I call the roommate phase, where he's probably done some healing, but hasn't really done great healing. And you don't want to leave for a lot of really probably valid, important reasons. A lot of times it's kids or finances. And so there's this roommate phase where you're just trying to hang in there. And then phase four is an organic shift where the betrayed partner's focus stops being about the relationship and about him. The crisis has calmed. And it's really where she really focuses inward and goes, man, I have got to heal me. I've got to focus on me. And this is a beautiful phase that all women come back together in and going, okay, I didn't ask for this, never wanted this to be my story, but here I am. I've got one life to live. How do I make my future and the rest of my life exciting to live? How do I heal and really dive into life? So those are the 4 phases.
Which is essentially getting to post-traumatic growth at the end, right?
100%. Yeah.
I found it really phase three. I don't know that there's a lot of resources that kind of presuppose that the couple's moving forward. There's some resources for divorce. I like that you have all 3 different paths in that because that's the reality. Some couples really do heal and they do the work and make it, and some don't, or it looks different. They're healing maybe separate as opposed to together. I don't know if I've read anything that has the roommate path, but we see that too. I definitely have some couples that are in that place, and whether that's for a short period of time or a long period of time. So I don't know. I think that's honoring to everybody's experience to have these different paths in there. I think it's really great.
Yeah, I really like this roommate phase as well because I think couples, they're trying to figure out, are they going to be the partner, right? Am I going to be sexual? Am I not going to be sexual? And if that dedication to sobriety and recovery isn't really there, and the partner's trying to decide what to do, it does go into this I'm gonna call it like no man's land. It's like I don't know where I'm at. I'm watching and he's not doing what I think he should do. I'm not comfortable being sexual. So here we are. And I like it that, and I think that you're validating that is real and okay for partners to be in that place.
Absolutely. I think it's the reality for a huge percentage of betrayed partners. I think we just don't see it or talk about it as much.
Mhm.
But yeah, absolutely. And that was one of my hearts for this book is I want all betrayed partners to feel seen and caught. And the reality, the roommate phase can often go one of two extremes. It can very likely go to a place where her lights start to dim and shut down. And that to me is the greatest tragedy of all. Like when she just starts to die inside, like that just breaks my heart. So that is the danger in there. This is also the danger of prolonged stress and all of the ramifications it can have on your body, right? But the beautiful thing is, and maybe this isn't the other extreme, but it is the possibility that you can actually stay even when he's not doing great work and thrive, but it requires some really radical detachment and some really radical self-care. And I interviewed beautiful soul, a woman who I know is in this phase, who stayed. Husband is not doing great work, but has found a way to thrive and to make it and to dive into life. So it is possible. And I wanted everybody to know that is possible.
I want to ask a question about the roommate phase because the people I'm thinking about are the ones who we think we're going to stay in a marriage relationship or in a committed monogamous relationship, but I do feel more like a roommate. We're both doing good work, but yet maybe the fear or the, especially sexually, the fear of sexual contact isn't quite yet healed to the place that they have resumed their sexual life. And so they feel like roommates. So I'm wondering, does your definition right there expand for that group, include that group as well, where both people are trying, are working, and they're living collaboratively in good companionship, but haven't really worked on the sexual piece, or sex is not on the table and it may not be for the relationship? Would they go into that select group too?
No, I don't categorize people by their sexual intimacy with their partner. So if they feel like their relationship is healing and they're both doing good work and there's emotional intimacy, then I would put them in the redemption path. Because what I tell my clients after betrayal is this is your body and you get to choose if you ever have sex with him again. Now, ideally, if the relationship is healing, that it can get to that point. A lot of times it does, but it's also okay if it doesn't. And you can still have a very meaningful, healing relationship and or marriage. And that part doesn't have to determine the health of your relationship. So I would say if they're both doing good work and they're connecting and they're healing, then I would put them in the redemption phase.
Beautiful, beautiful. Because I agree with you. If they mutually are doing work and they mutually decide that it's not there for them yet, or maybe ever will be, that's still a healing and a coming together. They get to decide what they want
Absolutely.
sexually. Okay, thank you.
Well, and I'm thinking in this phase too, they might be in the roommate phase and then it might go to redemption or it might go to divorce.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
it's not that once they are in, they identify we're in step 3 and I feel I'm in the roommate phase and like all is lost. Just want to note that to people listening.
Sometimes there's this idea that there is a right way to heal and that there is the right outcome. And of course, what that outcome is, what the betrayed partner wants that outcome to be is one thing. But I think we have to be careful of going, you know what, divorce may be the right outcome for certain circumstances. And so I guess just being at that place where for the betrayed partners listening, like you get to determine what you want your life to look like and what decisions are right for you and when the decisions are right. And Wendy, to your point, like somebody might be in the roommate phase, like it's not a comfortable phase to be in. That's not a phase that anybody wants to be in, but it may be there for a long period of time, and that's okay. That is totally okay. And then if at some point you're like, okay, maybe he kicks it into gear, it's really the determination of the roommate phase is really how well he is doing, right? And so if he kicks it into gear and he goes into healing, great. Or if you get to that place of, no, I can't, to save myself, I'm done. I'm done. That's okay too. So just to catch everybody that there's no shame at all.
I want to zoom out for a second, but yeah, there's something you said that I thought was really important for those that are in this place. That let's say someone is feeling stuck in the roommate phase and they're dimming. I think that tragedy you talked about earlier, that they're feeling their light is dimming. Do you have any words of wisdom for those partners that are in that space? I feel like I don't want my light to dim. I can see it going that way. How do I keep thriving for myself, even if he's not willing to do the work?
Well, and let me add on, how do you determine that from grief?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think experientially it feels different. I think the grief, there is still energy about that, even if it's the energy of sadness. And if we know that grief is processing, then there's also the anger component. And I think sometimes what happens, this is probably a whole nother conversation, but sometimes if we pull out anger, then they cycle in sadness. And that's stuck, but that's not lights dimming. There's still energy flowing. The lights dimming are when it's like, I guess I'm just, if it's between me, my heart and the kid's heart, I'm just going to choose the kid's heart and I'm just going to let myself go. And I think experientially, I think a lot of betrayed partners feel that, no, I'm just letting myself die inside because that's the only way I can survive. So for those, when I'm talking to a client where I'm like, I'm afraid your light is dimming. Most of them, if it are, they know it, they can feel it. But for me, it's like full stop, full stop. Everything else stops. We have got to fight for that. We can't let that light go out. Everything else can pause because if we lose you, we lose everything. And I don't even care about anything at that point. We can't lose you. You have great worth and value. We can't lose you. And so it's starting to it's starting to ignite that fire back in her of you have great worth and value. And what do we need to do? A lot of times that is strong detachment, healthy detachment, not disconnect, not stonewalling, but a healthy detachment where we are creating a buffer between what he is doing or what he really is not doing, right? And you. So what does that mean? That means shifting and starting to look at how do I get my needs met elsewhere? What still sparks at least a little bit of that flame inside of you? What can you get passionate about? Going and looking for fun, looking for joy, and fighting for that. It's like shifting everything inward of we have got to find that little spark that's inside of you and we've got to flame that. We got to fan that and build that back up again.
Yeah, I was thinking too that the impact of gaslighting, abuse, and I know you address this in the book, that this can happen. It's not just light dimming, it's also there's potentially active abuse going on, or gaslighting, or suppression. There's all kinds of stuff, coercion that can happen. So I know you do address this, which I think these are tough things to talk about, but really important because this could be absolutely part of what's actually dimming the partner's lights.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that because that's one of the things I did in the research for the book was looking at this. And man, there's a lot more abuse going on than I think most of us realize. And for that, I say this in the book. I say, if this is your experience, then really stop the book and get focus on that abuse help. Because a lot of times what happens is that if we're trying to help a betrayed partner become more empowered and set boundaries and whatnot, if there is a legitimate, not that there's ever illegitimate, but if there is some serious abuse going on, that will increase the abuse a lot of times. And so just if that's there, safety first, get safe and get somebody who really specializes in domestic violence because most of us in the betrayal world we don't specialize in domestic violence, right? So it's really important to get the right help.
Let's zoom back out if that's okay. In areas of stuckness, we talk about potentially one. What areas do you see partners getting stuck and how do you help them move through betrayal?
This is one of my passions because I think there's there's very common ways that betrayed partners get stuck. And man, this process already takes long enough. Like we don't want to spend any more time here than we need to. Some of the common ways I see is early on a focus on trust. If I can just learn to trust him again, we'll be okay. Or forgiveness. Like if I can just forgive him and move on. I often do a survey with the Betrayal Healing Conference of the people coming in. And this comes, if I ask them, what is the main thing you are struggling with right now? Trust and forgiveness, some variation of that, is a huge percentage. And so just realizing there's a lot of pressure early on, especially if he's not doing good work. I've stopped. Why don't you trust me? Why don't we move on? Why can't you just forgive me and we move on and then we'll be fine? And there's that desire too. Man, if we could hit a fast forward button to get through this, if there was one, oh my gosh, we would all be giving it, right? But unfortunately, that's not it. So focusing on things like trust and forgiveness too early on in the process is one way that people get stuck and healing shuts down. Another way, and I alluded to this, but is within the grieving process. If we think shock and denial coming in, and then the main kind of work of grieving is the sadness, anger, my words, and bargaining, and then the acceptance. And what happens a lot of times is for the sadness and anger piece, we all naturally gravitate towards one more than the other for the most part. And what can happen is when we pull one out, and a lot of times I see this with anger in my population, is like when they're like, ooh, anger is scary, or I was told not to be angry, or I was told I was bad. If they pull that out, then they cycle in sadness. And similarly, if they're like, ooh, actually, I feel much stronger in my anger. And so I'm just going to pull out that sadness piece, then they cycle in anger. So that's another way, another common way that I see betrayed partners getting stuck.
So you're saying, let me make sure I've got this. If I tend to be a person who has more access or more connection and feeling sad, a way to get unstuck if I feel stuck is to actually focus on my anger.
I would say I'm not a big fan of directing necessarily the focus, but I would say is make sure that you are open to both. And if you have locked one out, then we need to go in and focus in on that and figure out what's going on there, what's going on, and gently unlock that and bring that back in. But I think allowing yourself to flow through all the emotions is crucial for that grieving process.
Mhm. And that's why earlier in today you said that if their grief is processing, you'll also see the anger. That's how you know if it's processing. So you're saying that the anger and sadness, if those two are interacting in whatever way is right for the person, that's them processing through their grief. Do I got it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
It's interesting because early on in my education and career, I was taught that anger is a secondary emotion, and underneath that is sadness or fear. And so it's interesting because if we talk about partners, the anger, of course, can turn to rage. And so there's this interesting piece of how do I've always thought we don't want to shut down the anger. And I'm wondering, is there some danger in going too fast to, okay, we hear your anger, but what's the sadness and the fear underneath? What do you guys think?
I was just thinking anger, maybe we don't address this very much, but anger is also a way that says something's wrong. It's a sign of injustice. It's that we should be angry with injustice. And part of betrayal is injustice too. So I think so. I agree, Wendy. I think that was my training too, is okay, let's try to get through the anger to what's underneath it, like the quote unquote real emotions or something. Not that they would say anger is not, but I think you're right. There's something really important about honoring the anger, which should be there after betrayal. How could you not feel angry?
I see angry as two, one that you're talking about, angry, the injustice standing up for, as well as anger coming in. See, I would say in protection of pain, feeling hurt, and the protector of hurt would be anger. But I can see anger going both, pure on its own and as a protector. But to involve it in grief processing and sadness, that makes a lot of sense to me, Tammy. And if one person has more access and connection or comfort in experiencing either sadness or anger, making sure to have both present might help the processing piece. I like this.
I have a very perhaps unpopular opinion about anger. I don't like the whole anger as a secondary emotion. I just practically, I don't like it because what it says, what I interpret that to be is anger, like you said, we just have to move through it or it's not really important. I think anger is vital for betrayed partners. And I think it also, like, there's so much, it gives us the energy we need to do things like set boundaries. It provides protection. It also goes hand in hand with self worth. If I have a partner come in and they are really struggling with self worth, the first question I'll ask them is, what is your relationship like with your anger? And every single time they'll say, ooh, I don't.
Oh,
And so I think that, and also I think too, there's a lot of fear. I think as a counseling world, we have a lot of fear around anger. And I think it is the fear that it'll go to rage and anger are two separate things. Like rage is like violence. When it goes to that violent, scary piece, that's rage, that's not anger. And so just having a very clear distinction of the two, I think is helpful. But I think also we have a lot of fear around anger expressed within relationships as well. And I look at that and I go, that is a form of emotional intimacy. It is not the warm, fuzzy kind. But when a betrayed partner is expressing their anger to the person who hurt them, that is vitally important. And it is sharing their heart. It is a form of emotional intimacy. It can be. And again, we're not talking rage. We're talking, I am so angry that you did this. How could you do this? Like, how? I don't like how. And to me, there's a theory or by David Clark. I'll just say this. And the theory he has is this idea of pumping the well of your soul dry. Okay. And it's this idea that when you find out about all the vile, nasty of acting out that your partner has done, when you find out about all that, it all gets dumped into the well of your soul. And we have got to get it out. And if it stays there, it will fester and it will poison. And this idea of you have to pump the well of your soul dry, you have to get all of that out of you. And you do that by you ask those questions, you put it into words, you express your emotions, you get it out. And obviously, if he's not safe, then it needs to go to somebody else. But that I think is vital, not only for the betrayed partner, I think it's vital for the authenticity and the intimacy of the relationship if it's going to make it as well.
And can I add too? Because I think I love that. And I think it's actually so important for the betrayer too. Because a lot of times the men, I work with male addicts or betrayers, the men that I work with, they have a hard time seeing the anger, maybe, first of all, maybe from their own family of origin stuff, this idea that she's mad, I'm bad. So they go into shame and I can't see her angry because that just shines a mirror to the shame of what I did. And I don't want to see that in myself. So I don't want her to be mad. But how helpful if I can actually hold space for that anger, if I can walk into it and hold her in the anger and actually join her, man, there's something that's actually healing for the betrayed partner, of course, for the relationship, but also for me that actually can show up as in a betrayal context. I can show up with her and hold that anger and I don't have to run from it or defend from it. So I think that's really beautiful and it's so difficult. And I think it goes to, and I actually really like the idea that you're saying too, that idea that anger's so vital because I think many men I work with, they have this extra thought that I'm not good enough. Nothing I ever do is good enough. And by default pushes the partner like you're too much. You're too much, you're too this, you're too that. And I guess if we suppress the anger, what's the message that the partner internalizes? That your anger is too much, you're too this. And so I think actually it's not. It's understandable, it's normal. And this is how we heal. And instead of kind of suppressing it, like actually moving through it as a couple, if we can do that in a safe way, it's pretty powerful.
I'm wondering how this would apply, not apply, what parts apply with male betrayed partners. The idea of self-worth and anger, having a relationship and expressing anger. And I'm curious if male partners would say they too feel the same four phases. Any
I think
thoughts?
that's a great question. I don't know. I wouldn't want to try to speak to that because I don't work with male betrayed partners. And I think their experience deserves the nuanced side of things that I just wouldn't do justice speaking to. But I really hope that we have more people who dive into this, because men need their voice heard. They
Well,
need their voice heard.
we did do an interview with Adam, and so Adam's specialty is betrayed male partners. Dan, do you remember Adam's book title?
Right off the top of my head, no, sorry.
That's okay. We'll cycle back around that. But
Adam Nissenson, he's got a book on male betrayed partners.
yes,
Which is so, yeah, so important. So you said something before, and I want to go back to, but first I just want to pause for a second and just remind everyone that we're listening to conversations on sex, addiction, and relationships. And we're talking about betrayal, and specifically Tammy Gustafson's new book on Broken to Brave. So we're excited about that. You mentioned one big thing that partners often look for is trust. So trust, when's it safe to trust again? How do you address that big little concept? Is it safe for me? When's it safe to trust again?
Right. The thing that I think is most important, the paradigm shift from pre-betrayal to post, is that once betrayal happens, trust is not given. It is earned. It is earned by him by consistent, trustworthy behavior over a long period of time. So for the betrayed partner to release yourself from that, because man, it is amazing how much pressure betrayed partners get to be the one to step forward and choose to trust and whatnot. And I would say, no, you gave that and he broke it. So now trust needs to be earned. And so that is going to take a lot of time. And that when to trust, well, I would say you watch him, you watch his behavior. Is he safe? Is he humble? Is he sober? For sure. But is he showing trustworthy behavior for a long period of time?
this is a piece where partners, but addicts too, will say, well, how long? I've been sober for a year. So, and that's, I think, one of the most challenging things is addicts will say, I've been sober. And she'll say, yeah, but you haven't been doing the dishes like you said you would, or you said you were going to get the oil change on the car and you didn't. He's, well, what's the big deal about that? And there's a real misunderstanding of the addicts of you have to be trustworthy across the board, not just around the addiction. And Tammy, what do you think? Am I on the right track here? Or?
I would agree with that, but I would also say if they're asking how long, I've been sober for a year now, like, why aren't you trusting me? Then we have a deeper issue, because it should be, I am going to choose to be a person of integrity and someone who is trustworthy, period, because that's who I want to be. And I understand that I broke your heart and I shattered your life and worldview. And so you take all the time that you need, and I am going to continue to do this. So if we're getting questions about how long and, hey, I'm doing this, I would say we're looking at the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which is probably a sign that there's other work to be done and not we're focused on the wrong place. That makes sense. We hear that a lot, unfortunately. And you said the consistency, and I say that a lot too. I find some guys will do the big grand gestures. They'll do okay, I'm going to do this big sweeping, big date night or excursion somewhere, or a vow renewal ceremony, or these kind of big things, which can be really fine. I'm not saying don't do those, or a big gift or something. But I'm more impressed. What do things look like on a Thursday when you're tired after work? How do you show up? Like when it's a everyday, day in, day out. And I have some couples that, it's not consistent either. So it's, let's say 50% consistent. And I've used this example. I did rideshare recently. I took a rideshare, and I was like, if I knew that, and I had an early airline flight, so I booked it ahead of time. I think we left at, let's say 4 or something in the morning. If I had 50% assurance that the thing was going to show up on time, would I feel pretty good about that when I had to get to the airport? Not really. Even 90% is not great, but I don't do that if I have a 50% guarantee that they're going to show up or not. So we're talking not 50%, not 60, we're trying 90+% of consistency. That doesn't mean perfection, but we think that consistency is really important. And you can't also, for me, and this is a pet peeve of mine, you can't compartmentalize integrity either. So if I'm lying, my partner sees me lying in all these other areas, but I'm not lying about my sexual behaviors, it doesn't make her feel safe. Or she sees me with addicty behaviors at work or with food or with other things, it's going to probably trigger her that, okay, you're still acting addicty. So anyway, that's a little pet peeve, but I hear what you're saying. I think that's important. As we're getting closer to wrapping up, I know we're getting there. Any Jeannie, Wendy, any other questions you had for Tammy?
No, because I was interested in exploring the how to get unstuck piece, but I feel like we did cover that. I guess I'd be asking Tammy if people are listening to this for the first time and they're just new coming in here, any words of wisdom that you would offer?
I think the biggest, my heart, particularly with this book, is to give betrayed partners permission.
Mm.
Permission to be exactly where you're at. Permission to listen to your body. Permission to do recovery how you want to do it. Permission to take what works for you and to leave the rest. Permission to trust your gut. Permission that there is no timeline on your healing. And you can take all the time that you need. And so I think sometimes we get so focused on doing it right because it matters to us and our future, but sometimes we get into doing it right and then we read all the books and listen to all the podcasts and it just gets more and more confusing. And I think we can lose ourselves in that process of trying to do things a certain way or how we think we're told to be, but just really focusing back on listening to yourself, on that relationship with yourself, of being kind to yourself. And man, no one wants to heal more or faster than a betrayed partner wants to heal.
Yeah.
And so just that I see you and I hear you, and man, you have great worth and value.
Thank you.
I have two questions. So the first one is for women that are divorcing. I'm thinking that step 4 or phase 4 is just as important for them as for partners that stay in the marriage.
1000%.
And then this piece of it sounds wonderful, looking for fun, looking for joy. How do you do that? What I find with a lot of partners that I've worked with is that they have never actually gone into this realm for themselves. So partners seem to be overachievers and focusing on others a lot of the time. And so is in the book or right here, right now, do you have how to do that, right? It sounds so easy. Well, just find something you like, or that's, and they're like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe I'll make something for the kids. So no, it's for you. How do you help them with that?
Yeah, well, the last thing I ever want to do is make any of this sound easy because we know it's not, right? And the only reason I focus on fun so much is that I didn't for years after life blew up for me. And I got to the place I was in a support group and it stopped being a formal support group about our husbands and whatnot. And it just became friends. And gosh, probably 6 years in, we were on a call one day and I was like, man, everything still feels so dark and heavy. Like my marriage is recovered and is doing great, but life still feels dark and heavy. And everybody else felt the same way too. And I think that's part of the danger of this whole process is it is so dark and so heavy that fun is the last thing any of us think of. But it's the spark that makes life worth living. And I'll tell a quick story. This is in the book, but the way I reconnected with fun was my husband took me indoor skydiving. And the first time I got in that tunnel, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what fun is like. I forgot what it was like to have fun. And I had about a year ago, I had a dear friend who found out that her husband had betrayed her. And so I flew out, we spent the day together, and I was like, we will talk and we will process and we will cry, but we will also have fun. And so I took her to indoor skydiving and I saw her, same thing. We like laughed at these ridiculous big suits, these helmets and whatnot, but I saw her lean into the wind and her face lit up in this huge smile and she just giggled the whole time. And so she came out and she gave me the biggest hug and she said, Tammy, thank you. This gives me hope. If I can laugh, if I can smile, if I can giggle in the midst of this incredible pain, like it gives me hope that maybe, just maybe, I'll be okay. Maybe, just maybe, I will make it through this. And that's part of the power of fun. It's not a flippant thing, just go have fun. It is the hardest thing to try to figure that out when you're so deep into the darkness. But what I would say, why I fight for it, is because if you can smile in the midst of it, if you can laugh in the midst of it, it'll give you that assurance that maybe, just maybe, you're going to make it through.
I love that. What a great way to reflect on hope and lightness through something that not can be, but is really dark and devastating. So, Tammy, thank you so much for sharing your heart and your wisdom and your experience with the world. So, for anyone trying to find you or the book, can you again name the book and then where they can find it and how they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. The book is Broken to Brave, and you can find it on Amazon. That's probably the easiest way to find it. And you can find me, you can find the book on brokentobravebook.com or me at tammygustafson.com.
Perfect. Thank you, Tammy. And thank you all for joining us. And again, you're listening to Conversations on Sex, Addiction, and Relationships. And if you find this helpful, we really appreciate your feedback, and also subscribe, and pass to someone else who could use this. And also we'd love to hear your feedback and answer mailbag questions. So we have an email address where you can send questions to us at conversations.sar@gmail.com. Thanks, everybody. Join us
Thank you,
next time.
everyone.